In the dim glow of an alien sun, Captain Elias Voss stood at the edge of a crystalline platform suspended over an ocean of liquid light. The air shimmered with hues unknown to human eyes, and every breath carried the faint scent of ozone mixed with something sweet yet metallic. Before him loomed the Empress, a being whose form defied all logic, shifting between states of matter as if she were both solid and ephemeral. Her skin glimmered like molten silver laced with veins of gold that pulsed rhythmically, matching the cadence of some unseen heartbeat. She wore no garments in the traditional sense. Instead, her body seemed cloaked in living energy, tendrils of radiant blue weaving through strands of translucent fabric that floated around her like captured starlight. Elias had come here on what he thought was a routine diplomatic mission, to negotiate resource-sharing agreements between Earth's fledgling interstellar coalition and this newly discovered empire. But nothing about this encounter felt routine. From the moment his ship descended into the atmosphere of this alien world, he'd been struck by its otherworldly beauty. Towering spires made of glass-like material that refracted light into infinite rainbows, rivers of bioluminescent water snaking across vast plains, and skies filled with twin moons casting overlapping shadows. Yet it wasn't just the landscape that left him awestruck, it was her. The Empress had summoned him alone to her private sanctum deep within the heart of their capital city. No guards accompanied them, no aides hovered nearby. It was just Elias and this enigmatic ruler standing face to face, or rather face to form, for her features blurred and shifted constantly, making it impossible to pin down any single expression or emotion. Still, there was something profoundly intimate about the way she regarded him, as though she could see straight through his carefully constructed facade to the core of who he truly was. He cleared his throat, trying to steady himself against the weight of her gaze. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice betraying only a hint of nervousness, "I'm honored to meet you." His words sounded hollow even to his own ears, but they served their purpose, breaking the silence that had stretched taut between them since his arrival. "You are the first human I have ever touched," she said suddenly, her voice resonating not just in his ears but somewhere deeper, vibrating along his bones. He hadn't noticed her move closer, hadn't realized when one of those luminous tendrils extended toward him until it brushed lightly against his hand. The sensation was electric, sending jolts of warmth coursing through his veins. It wasn't unpleasant, not exactly, but it unsettled him nonetheless, like being connected to something vast and unknowable. Her touch lingered for only a moment before withdrawing, leaving behind a faint tingling sensation that refused to fade. Elias swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Diplomatic protocol didn't cover moments like these. I don't know what to say," he admitted finally, his voice quieter now, almost reverent. "There is no need for words," she replied, tilting her head slightly as though studying him from another angle. "Words are constructs of limitation. They cannot contain what exists between us." "Between us?" Elias frowned inwardly, searching her shifting visage for answers. What did she mean? Was this some kind of test? A ritual? Or was she simply indulging in curiosity, regarding him as one might examine an unfamiliar creature brought before them? Whatever the case, he couldn't deny the strange pull he felt toward her, a gravitational force stronger than anything he'd experienced before. It wasn't attraction in the conventional sense. It went beyond physicality, bypassing desire entirely and tapping into something primal, something ancient buried within him. As they stood there, suspended in silence save for the soft hum of energy emanating from her presence, Elias became acutely aware of the enormity of the situation. This wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. Something far greater hung in the balance, though he couldn't yet name it. All he knew was that the Empress had chosen him, for reasons he couldn't fathom, and whatever path lay ahead would be unlike anything he'd ever imagined. The Empress moved closer, her form undulating like liquid mercury as she circled him with deliberate grace. Each step, or glide, rather, seemed to warp the space around her, distorting the crystalline floor beneath their feet into rippling patterns of light. Elias found himself instinctively stepping back, though not out of fear. It was more a reflexive response to the overwhelming intensity of her presence, as if his body recognized the need to create distance while his mind struggled to comprehend her proximity. "You carry scars," she observed, her voice resonating softly yet piercingly. One of her radiant tendrils reached out again, this time tracing the faint line of an old wound along his forearm. He winced, not from pain, but from the flood of memories it evoked. That scar had been earned during a skirmish years ago, when he'd barely escaped death aboard a derelict spacecraft overrun by hostile forces. To him, it was just another mark of survival, one among many etched into his flesh. But to her, it seemed to hold significance far beyond its physical appearance. "Scars tell stories," she continued, her tone almost wistful. "They are maps of endurance, records of battles fought and survived. Do you think your people understand this? Or do they seek only perfection, erasing imperfections to chase illusions?" Elias hesitated, caught off guard by the depth of her question. On Earth, advancements in medical technology had rendered scars largely obsolete for most individuals. Regenerative treatments could heal wounds without leaving so much as a blemish, and society often equated unblemished skin with success or status. Yet here she was, marveling at something humanity had long sought to erase. He glanced down at his arm, suddenly seeing the scar in a new light, as proof of resilience rather than a flaw to be hidden. "I suppose we've forgotten how to value them," he admitted quietly. "We focus on moving forward, fixing what's broken. Sometimes, we forget that breaking is part of living." She paused mid-motion, her shimmering form freezing momentarily before resuming its fluid dance. "Breaking is necessary," she agreed. "Without fracture, there can be no growth. Without darkness, light loses meaning." There was a weight to her words, as though she spoke from experience far beyond human comprehension. For a fleeting second, Elias wondered what kind of trial someone, or something, like her might endure. Could an entity so vast and powerful ever break? And if she did, what would it take to mend her? Her next movement brought her directly in front of him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her energy field. It wasn't oppressive, but it demanded attention, commanding every nerve ending in his body to acknowledge her presence. "And yet," she murmured, tilting her head as though peering into his soul, "your scars are not merely external. They run deeper, tangled within the threads of your spirit." Elias stiffened, his breath hitching involuntarily. How could she possibly know? The guilt, the grief, the doubts, all buried deep where no one else could see them. Not even his closest friends suspected the turmoil simmering beneath his composed exterior. He prided himself on maintaining control, on presenting an image of strength and reliability. But now, under her scrutiny, he felt stripped bare, exposed in ways he hadn't anticipated. "You carry loss," she stated, her voice softer now, almost tender. "A void shaped like love. A separation forged by time and distance." His chest tightened painfully as images flashed through his mind, faces he hadn't allowed himself to think about in years. His sister, taken too soon by illness. His father, whose pride in him had always been tempered by disappointment. And then there was Elena, the woman he'd once believed he'd spend his life with, until duty called him away and silence grew between them. These weren't things he talked about. They were locked away, filed under compartments labeled regret and what-ifs. But here, in this alien sanctum, those walls crumbled effortlessly under her gaze. "I see it," she whispered, raising a tendril to hover near his temple without touching. "The ache of absence. The longing for connection unfulfilled." He wanted to look away, to shield himself from her probing, but he couldn't. Instead, he stood frozen, caught in the gravity of her understanding. It wasn't judgment he felt, it was recognition. As though she, too, bore similar burdens, albeit ones incomprehensible to human minds. "Why does it hurt?" he asked hoarsely, surprising himself with the raw honesty of the question. "Why does letting go feel impossible?" For a moment, she didn't answer. Instead, she withdrew slightly, her form flickering like candlelight caught in a draught. When she spoke again, her voice carried a note of sorrow so profound it sent shivers down his spine. "Because letting go requires faith. Faith that the universe will fill the emptiness left behind. Faith that endings are not finalities, but beginnings waiting to unfold." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Elias felt tears prickling at the corners of his eyes, though he willed them not to fall. He hadn't cried in years, not since the funeral, not since the last message from Elena saying goodbye. Yet here, in this surreal moment, he felt the dam threatening to crack open. Before he could respond, the Empress stepped back, her movements graceful yet deliberate. "Come," she said, extending a shimmering tendril toward him. There is more you must see. Reluctantly, he followed, his legs moving almost of their own accord. As they walked, or rather, as she glided and he stumbled after her, the crystalline platform beneath them began to shift, transforming into a pathway that spiraled upward toward the heavens. Above, the twin moons cast overlapping halos of light, bathing everything in an ethereal glow. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into something monumental, something that would change him forever. And perhaps, he thought with a pang of dread, it already had. As they ascended the spiraling pathway, the world around them transformed subtly yet profoundly. The air thickened, carrying whispers of sound that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. Melodic tones that danced on the edge of comprehension, like fragments of songs sung in a language older than stars. The crystalline surface beneath their feet pulsed faintly with each step, responding to their presence as though alive. Elias felt disoriented, as if reality itself had softened its edges, allowing him to slip into a realm where logic held little sway. The Empress led him to a chamber unlike anything he'd seen before. Its walls shimmered with iridescent hues, shifting colors in response to some unseen rhythm. At its center stood a massive structure, an intricate lattice of glowing filaments that resembled both a web and a tree, branching outward in fractal patterns that defied geometry. From certain angles, it appeared solid. From others, translucent, as though it existed simultaneously in multiple states of being. Suspended within the lattice were orbs of varying sizes, each pulsing with its own unique frequency of light. Some glowed softly, like embers cooling after a fire, while others burned brightly, their brilliance almost blinding. "What is this place?" Elias whispered, his voice barely audible over the ambient hum filling the chamber. "This," the Empress replied, her tone imbued with reverence, "is the nexus of echoes. It holds the collective memory of my kind, the imprints of lives lived, decisions made, paths taken and abandoned. Every choice leaves a trace, a resonance that echoes through time." She extended one of her radiant tendrils toward the lattice, and an orb near the base flared to life, its glow intensifying until it nearly drowned out the others. "This sphere contains the essence of your arrival, a record of the moment you stepped onto our soil, the ripples your presence created. Watch." The orb expanded, projecting a shimmering hologram into the air. Elias saw himself descending from his ship, clad in his uniform, his posture rigid with determination. But the projection didn't stop there. It showed events he hadn't witnessed, the reactions of the Empress's advisors, the subtle shifts in the planet's ecosystems as his ship entered orbit, even the quiet murmurings of citizens who had gathered to catch a glimpse of the first human ambassador. Each detail unfolded with such clarity that Elias felt as though he were reliving the moment, but from countless perspectives at once. This isn't possible," he stammered, shaking his head in disbelief. "How can you capture all of this? Every thought, every reaction." "We do not capture," she corrected gently. "We resonate. Your actions ripple outward, influencing everything they touch. The nexus merely amplifies what already exists, revealing connections invisible to the naked eye." Her explanation did little to ease the unease growing in his chest. If the nexus revealed the interconnectedness of all things, then surely it also exposed truths he'd rather keep hidden. He thought of the scars she'd spoken of earlier, the ones etched into his spirit. Would they appear here too, laid bare for anyone to see? As if sensing his apprehension, the Empress turned to face him fully. Her form stabilized momentarily, solidifying into something resembling humanoid features, though still suffused with an otherworldly glow. "You fear vulnerability," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. "But vulnerability is not weakness. It is the foundation upon which trust is built. Without it, connection cannot exist." Her words struck a chord deep within him, resonating with something he'd long denied. Throughout his life, he'd prided himself on self-reliance, on never needing anyone else. It was a mindset born of necessity. He'd learned early on that depending on others often led to disappointment. Yet now, standing before this alien ruler in a chamber brimming with cosmic secrets, he began to wonder if his independence had cost him more than he realized. "Do you wish to see further?" she asked, her gaze piercing yet gentle. "To witness the echoes of your past, the choices that shaped you into who you are today?" Elias hesitated, torn between curiosity and fear. Part of him yearned to understand, to confront the parts of himself he'd buried so deeply they felt like strangers. But another part recoiled at the thought of exposing those wounds, of facing the raw truth of his failures and regrets. "I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted finally, his voice trembling. "What if I can't handle what I see?" The Empress tilted her head, considering him with an expression that might have been compassion. "Readiness is not required," she said. "Only willingness. The Nexus does not judge. It simply reflects. Whether you embrace what you find or turn away is your choice alone." Her assurance offered little comfort, but it was enough to steel his resolve. Nodding slowly, he took a step closer to the lattice. "Show me," he whispered, his voice barely audible. At her command, another orb flared to life, this one higher up in the lattice. Its glow enveloped him, pulling him into a vision so vivid it felt indistinguishable from reality. He saw himself as a child, small and fragile, clinging to his mother's hand as she led him through crowded streets. He felt the warmth of her smile, the safety of her presence. Then the scene shifted abruptly, and he was older, standing beside his sister's hospital bed, watching helplessly as machines beeped and monitors flatlined. Pain surged through him, sharp and searing, forcing him to stagger backward. "It's too much," he gasped, clutching his chest. "I can't." "You can," the Empress interrupted firmly. "Breathe. Let the echoes flow through you. They cannot harm you unless you resist them." Taking a shaky breath, Elias forced himself to remain still, allowing the visions to wash over him. He saw flashes of his military career, the camaraderie of his team, the adrenaline of battle, the weight of loss. He relived moments he tried to forget, arguments with his father, sleepless nights spent questioning his purpose, the hollow ache of drifting apart from Elena. Each memory carried its own emotional charge, some bitter, others bittersweet, but all undeniably real. Through it all, the Empress remained by his side, her presence steady and grounding. "Do you see now?" she asked softly. "These echoes define you, but they do not confine you. They are threads in the tapestry of your existence, woven together to create the whole." Tears streamed down his face unchecked as he absorbed her words. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to truly feel, the full spectrum of his emotions without resistance. It was overwhelming, yes, but also liberating. In confronting his past, he began to glimpse the possibility of healing, however distant it might seem. When the visions finally faded, leaving only the pulsing lattice behind, Elias collapsed to his knees, exhausted yet strangely renewed. The Empress knelt beside him, her form flickering softly as she placed a tendril on his shoulder. "You have faced the echoes," she said. "Now, you must decide how to carry them forward." He nodded, unable to speak, his mind racing with possibilities he couldn't yet articulate. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain: he would never be the same again. The chamber grew silent except for the faint hum of the Nexus, its lattice glowing steadily as though holding its breath. Elias sat cross-legged on the crystalline floor, his hands resting loosely on his knees, his breathing slow and deliberate. The weight of what he'd just experienced pressed heavily upon him, yet amidst the chaos of emotions, a peculiar clarity emerged. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that the scars etched into his spirit, the losses, the regrets, the fractured connections, were not anchors dragging him down but roots tethering him to something larger. The Empress's words echoed in his mind. "They are threads in the tapestry of your existence." Threads he could choose to weave anew. As if sensing his shift in awareness, the Empress rose gracefully, her form stabilizing into a more defined silhouette. She moved toward the edge of the chamber, where the walls dissolved into an expansive vista of the alien city below. Towering spires reached skyward, their surfaces alive with cascading streams of light that ebbed and flowed like tides. Between them, bridges of translucent material arched gracefully, connecting structures that seemed to defy gravity. It was breathtakingly beautiful, yet eerily serene, a civilization operating on principles far removed from human notions of progress or urgency. "Tell me," Elias ventured, his voice steadier now, "why did you bring me here? Why show me all of this?" The Empress turned slightly, her golden veins glowing brighter as though illuminated by an inner fire. "Because you are more than you realize. she said simply. More than your scars, more than your fears. Humanity stands at a crossroads, a precipice between destruction and transcendence. You are not merely a diplomat seeking resources. You are a harbinger of potential. Her declaration startled him. Harbinger? Potential? The idea seemed absurd, even arrogant. He was just one man, flawed and fallible, representing a species equally capable of great kindness and devastating cruelty. What could he possibly offer that warranted such grandiose terms? But why me? He pressed, rising to his feet. Surely there are others better suited, smarter, stronger, more deserving. She regarded him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Deserving has nothing to do with it. The universe operates not through merit but through resonance. Your presence here, your willingness to confront your echoes, it aligns with something greater. A convergence of energies neither you nor I fully understands. Her cryptic explanation frustrated him, but he sensed no malice in her words, only truth wrapped in mystery. Still, frustration gnawed at him. He needed tangible answers, not abstract philosophy. And what happens now? He asked, his tone sharper than intended. Am I supposed to save humanity? Lead them to enlightenment? Or am I just another pawn in some cosmic game? She smiled, or at least, her form shimmered in a way that suggested amusement. Neither salvation nor subjugation awaits you, she replied. What lies ahead is collaboration. My people and yours share a common thread, though you may not yet see it. Together, we can shape a future neither of us could achieve alone. Her statement ignited a spark of hope within him, fragile but persistent. Collaboration. Unity. These were concepts humanity often spoke of but rarely achieved. Could it truly be possible to bridge the chasm between two vastly different species? To forge a partnership based not on dominance or fear but on mutual respect and shared purpose. Before he could respond, the Empress gestured toward the view outside the chamber. Observe, she instructed. As he followed her gaze, the cityscape below began to transform. The spires pulsed with increased intensity, their lights coalescing into patterns that resembled constellations. Bridges shimmered and reconfigured, forming intricate networks that seemed to mirror neural pathways. Even the liquid light ocean surrounding the city reflected the changes, their surfaces rippling with kaleidoscopic hues. What's happening? Elias asked, all overtaking his skepticism. The resonance grows, she explained. Your arrival has catalyzed a shift, not only within yourself but within my people as well. We are attuned to frequencies most humans cannot perceive, yet your presence disrupts our equilibrium in ways both unsettling and invigorating. It challenges us to evolve, to reconsider what we thought immutable. Her admission stunned him. He had assumed his role here was passive, that he was merely an observer or messenger. But now, hearing her describe his impact as transformative, he felt the weight of responsibility settle over him anew. If his mere existence could influence an entire civilization, then what actions might he take to guide that influence toward something constructive? Yet doubt lingered, whispering insidious questions. Was he equipped for such a task? Could he navigate the complexities of interspecies diplomacy without succumbing to hubris or misunderstanding? And what sacrifices might be demanded of him along the way? The Empress must have sensed his turmoil, for she approached him once more, her radiant tendrils extending cautiously, as though seeking permission. When he didn't recoil, she allowed one to rest lightly against his chest, directly over his heart. The sensation was warm, comforting, and oddly familiar, as if she were reaffirming a bond that had always existed but gone unrecognized. Fear not the unknown, she murmured. It is fertile ground, rich with possibility. Trust in the echoes, they will guide you when certainty eludes you. Her touch lingered for a moment longer before withdrawing, leaving behind a lingering warmth that seemed to seep into his very core. For the first time since arriving on this alien world, Elias felt a flicker of confidence, not arrogance, but quiet assurance that he was exactly where he needed to be. As they stood together, gazing out at the evolving cityscape, Elias realized that the journey ahead would demand more of him than he had ever imagined. It would require courage, vulnerability, and an openness to change that challenged every instinct he possessed. But perhaps, he thought, that was the point. Growth rarely came without discomfort, and transformation rarely occurred without risk. The Empress turned to face him fully, her form shimmering with renewed vitality. "Come," she said, her voice imbued with quiet authority. "There is much to prepare, and time moves differently here. The convergence approaches, and we must act swiftly." Elias followed the Empress as she glided through the chamber, her radiant form casting shifting patterns of light across the crystalline walls. The air seemed to hum with anticipation, as though the very fabric of this alien world was holding its breath. He felt a strange mix of trepidation and resolve, each step forward pulling him deeper into an unfolding mystery he could no longer escape. They emerged onto a grand balcony overlooking the city below, now transformed into a living tapestry of interconnected lights. The spires pulsed in unison, their glow resonating with a rhythm that matched the beating of his own heart. It was as if the entire civilization had synchronized itself, not just to the Empress, but to him. The realization sent a shiver down his spine. "You are ready," the Empress said softly, turning to face him once more. Her features were steady now, almost human-like in their clarity, yet still suffused with an otherworldly luminescence. "The echoes have spoken. Your presence here is not coincidence, it is destiny." Before Elias could respond, the horizon erupted in a cascade of colors, bathing them in a celestial symphony of light. The twin moons above aligned perfectly, their overlapping halos merging into a single, blinding brilliance. From within that radiance, shapes began to emerge. Ships, vast and intricate, descending from the heavens like messengers of some higher order. "These are the envoys of my people," the Empress explained, her voice carrying both pride and solemnity. "They come bearing gifts and challenges for your kind. Together, we will forge a new path, one that transcends borders of species and space." Elias stared at the approaching fleet, his mind racing with possibilities. This was it, the moment where humanity's fate would pivot. And somehow, impossibly, he was at the center of it all. As the first ship landed gently on the platform before them, the Empress placed a shimmering tendril on his shoulder, grounding him. "Remember what you've seen in the Nexus," she whispered. "Let the echoes guide you. Trust yourself, Elias Voss. You carry more than scars, you carry hope." With those words, she stepped back, leaving him standing alone as the envoy's door opened. A figure emerged, tall and luminous, bowing deeply in greeting. Behind them stretched countless others, representatives of a civilization far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. Elias took a deep breath, straightening his posture. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain: he wouldn't face it alone. The universe had chosen him, and he would rise to meet it. The story ends here, with Elias stepping forward, ready to bridge two worlds and shape a future written in starlight and echoes.